Morning. Pleasure to have you all here today with the full crowd, I hope so. This is Kadir. I am the Executive Vice President of Alfama. We represent Jedox in India and Asia and Middle East and Africa. I have a couple of my colleagues from Jedox, David Upton, Vice President, and we have Brendan as well here with us. The next couple of hours will be an interesting session for all of you, and I hope to make this session much more lively, enterprising, informative. So you spend this 2 hours quality time with all of us here. That's the whole objective. So before we get into this World Tour event, I just want to give a quick snapshot of whom we are, what we do. We, Valpharma, we are based out of Bengaluru. We have our offices in Dubai and Chennai, and we operate out of Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So we are a company which are focusing mostly on SMAC, as you say the right word today is social mobility, analytics, and cloud. That's where Jedox came in as an analytics product for us. And we have started selling solutions out of Jedox and not product out of Jedox. So we don't just push licenses, so we sell solutions using Jedox. And as an analytics tool, we found out a value. We did evaluation of a lot of products, and we found out Jedox is the right product, which has to be brought into this marketscape, which can deliver value to the customers, because all of us have worked on Excel, and we don't want to move out of Excel. And the whole session is going to talk about how you can move out of Excel, still retain Excel with your data, keep your customers happy, keep your bosses happy. And so as a company, we wanted to keep this price performance as an important factor, and that's why we have customer intimacy as our core competency, and we focus with our customers. Within the short tenure, we are able to win quite a few customers on the Jedox. I picked up only a few of it, but there is many more to come, and there is many more to share. Few customers are here around who are part of this organization's growth. One is Renault Nissan, and Satish is going to talk about his experience out of Jedox today. And we have Mr. Vivek from Saint-Gobain. He's our new customer. We are happy to have him here. And we also have Unilever. The Unilever team will also join us today in this session. And we hope many of these people here around will turn out to be our customers and use this product effectively. And that's the whole agenda for this session, to make you, equip, enable, and use Jedox. So with this, I will not take much time. I will hand over to David and Brendan to walk you through about this product, the features, the benefits of using this product, and enable you out of the session that you have much more meaningful information about Jedox, and start looking at this product as one of your tools for your MIS, your planning, your budgeting, and probably your analytics also as well. Thanks. Thanks for being here once again. And I'll hand over to David. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kadir. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brendan Farrar. I take care of business development in Asia Pacific for Jedox. Thank you very much for coming to our World Tour event. Today is the last leg on our World Tour, and we're very happy that it's India. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce you to Jedox, the company, Jedox, the software solution, and of course, how it can benefit you and your organization. Of course, you'll hear from a couple of local customer references from us as well. Yeah, I can control. Let me control. So, as I said, we'll have an introduction to Jedox and the solution, and then we'll take you through, let's say, a couple of different areas of how Jedox can benefit various parts of an organization, be it the business professionals and management. Then, of course, we have the Jedox for power users. Then how Jedox helps IT in an organization. Then, as I said, we'll have a success story from Renault Nissan. Then we'll have a quick fast start with Jedox 6. And, of course, we'll have a round table discussion. Now, since we've got a very nice, intimate room and such nice, friendly people, of course, feel free to ask any questions at any time. That's what we're here for. And then we'll have lunch and networking together. So, Jedox. Jedox simplifies planning, reporting, and analysis. Now, we do that through being business intelligence and performance management software that suits all types of shapes and sizes of enterprise. And we do it, let's say, both on the cloud and on-premise as well. We're a German company. We've been in operation for the last 14 years. We're a global company. We've got offices in four continents. David and I are based in Singapore, so we're very close. We're neighbors, so we support our partners here in India very closely. We've about over 2,000 clients worldwide now using Jedox. And we've got a global partner network of nearly 200 business partners around the world, which allows Jedox to have a real international feel and reach and be able to do international deployments. And then, importantly, Jedox is designed for the business users. And we do this, as you'll learn, through our spreadsheet likeness. So what makes Jedox special? Well, Jedox allows you to plan, analyze, and report in one unified solution. Whereas a lot of companies, they have many different silos where they would have analysis done in one part of the organization, reporting in another, planning in another as well. Companies not using the same version of the truth. So not a lot of synergy in an organization. It's simple and fast. So we have it Excel-like, as I said, for business users. So if you know how to use Excel, you know how to use Jedox. And it's, as I said, it's deliverable both on the cloud and on-prem, and also on the hybrid cloud as well. So we can suit all types of enterprise. So, what are companies looking for when they're looking for a business intelligence and performance management tool? So the business user, generally, the main thing is, how can this tool allow me to do my work better? The power users is that, how flexible is the solution to allow me to configure and extend to all of the different requirements in our organization? Can it be fast? Is it agile? And of course, the IT department, does the new solution fit into our existing IT infrastructure and policies? You know, is this going to enable, or is this going to cause more shadow IT in an organization? Is it going to be an application that's going to be used internally? And of course, the C-level is, what does it cost? And what are the risks? Is there, what's the ROI? How much is this going to cost us as an organization? What are the benefits? So for the business users, how does Jedox enable me to be more productive? So, as we said, Jedox it simplifies cooperation to an organization. Is that there are no more silos. So, as I mentioned earlier, is that many organizations have their analysis, their planning and reporting either in different applications or perhaps in different departments. And with Jedox, as it's a unified solution, it allows you to do your performance management, to measure your KPIs, to do your reporting, to have your dashboards, but also you're able to do your ad hoc, predictive, and what-if analysis, and your strategic budgeting and planning and forecasting all together in one unified solution. So what this one version of the truth and one system allows collaboration through all of the different departments inside an organization. So where finance are using, you know, their financial data, or using their financial models built on the company data, sales could be using their sales models, but built on company data as well. Everyone is pulling, let's say, from the same source. And Jedox is agile. It allows you to use it securely from anywhere. So we have 3 environments for the enterprise. So we have spreadsheet, web, and mobile, because we understand that not every business user is in the spreadsheet environment. They want to have their nice dashboards, their nice reports and analyses and so on, and then maybe, let's say, various parts of the organization, maybe on a CX level, want to, let's say, pull out their tablets and start looking, let's say, at various reports and so on. They don't want to be digging inside, let's say, in spreadsheets. But then you have the power user who absolutely live inside spreadsheets. So of course, you have all of those different types of users who have different types of needs, and Jedox then meets those with, it's the same data, it's the same models, but just the interface is different, which allows them to both read and write from their data and to their data. And as I said, it's easy. It's Excel-like. Well, if you know Excel, you know how to use Jedox. So what we'll do now is, rather than me, let's say, telling you how it is, why don't we show you? So we'll have David take you through how Jedox helps business users and management. you want to switch on?
So as Brendan mentioned, where we're starting our journey today is as a business user. Now, just for my understanding, could we... Okay, excellent. So let's start that again. Thank you, Brendan, and good morning, everybody. What Brendan mentioned is that we've got 3 journeys today, and the first journey is around the business user. Ultimately, performance management, simplifying planning analysis is to make life easier for business users. As a show of hands, could I see who would be considered a business user? Who does planning and analysis as part of their job? Excellent, excellent, great. Well, this section is really for you. And where we're starting with is where a lot of our work starts today, which is on our smartphone or our tablet device. So what we're going to do is just share my iPad on the screen up here, so everyone can see what I'm looking at. And in this scenario, we're going to log into the Jedox app. Perhaps we're heading towards the plane and we need to check a couple of KPIs before we board the plane. So as an executive manager, we need a snapshot of how we're going across the organization. So firstly, I want to check revenue by country. And we can see here that we've got respectable sales here across the subcontinent. But then we want to do some time series analysis and see how we're performing against budget. So if we look at the deals run here on the left-hand side, we can even drill down on this and start understanding who our key customer segments are and our key customers, and see these instantly visualized over time to drill down to the details. So that effectively helps us better understand the past. That's what we typically say when we mean simplify reporting and simplify analysis. However, organizations don't live in the past. Really what they're about is what's going to be happening in the future. And therefore, if we take a look at the bottom here, we can see opportunities for the next quarter. We can see a pipeline based on the likelihood of different types of sales closing. And we can even visualize this in a traditional sales funnel pipeline. So we can see exactly the proportion of our business and the likelihood that we're going to achieve these goals. So suddenly we're not just looking at the past, we're also considering what will happen in the future. But again, that's not necessarily enough, because forecasts change. They change constantly. Sales opportunities change, macroeconomic drivers, FX rates change. There are always changes in organizations. So therefore, the last step of what we want to do is actually drill down to some of the key opportunities by sales rep or territory. And we can see here this is visualized, our performance against commitment and best case. But if you take a look down the bottom here, and we'll be going down through this in a lot more detail through today's presentation, we can see our committed plan, our budget versus our change in budget. Now I know Vinnie Jones, which is the rep that we're looking at the moment, and at a click, we can effectively just grab his forecast or his committed plan and pull that across and make adjustments. So we're not just doing read only, we're not just doing analysis on the past, we're actually looking at the future. And again, we'll come to this in some more detail shortly, but you can see here, we're actually working at a very high level in the organization here. We're looking at all products. But the information and what we're doing is actually drilling down to an extremely low level in this data. So there might be thousands or even hundreds of thousands of products that have been affected by these high-level changes. Okay, so what we've done there is effectively looked at the past, understand what's happened, understood why it's happened, and then use that insight to understand and decide what will happen and what do we want to happen, all from the comfort of our iPad. But sometimes standard dashboards and reports are not enough. Sometimes we have a particular question today that's different from the question yesterday. And what we need is absolute flexibility in being able to drill down and find insight rather than it being all defined for us. So what we can actually do is ad hoc analysis on the fly. As soon as you have your data available inside Jedox, we can very easily do analysis over this. So you can see here we're drilling down on our sales by our regions here. And with a click of a button, we can visualize this information in a more intuitive form. So this basically is combining standardized dashboards and reports, which are provided for us, with the flexibility of being able to answer any question that comes up. So if we take this information, one final aspect might be we drill down and have a look at all the detailed customers. We can even overlay this automatically from a geographical perspective. And so you can see our stores here based around the city. You can see that we've got one bike company out at the airport. So clearly that's doing well, and there seems to be a bit of hub of activity here over this side of the city. So the ability of switching between tabular, traditional information, to graphical information, to geographical, tends to give you a lot of ability of understanding your data from a lot of different angles. So that's the start of our journey today on the mobile device. But while mobile devices are pretty cool, we don't live on our mobiles. I mean, if you work in finance, if you work in any kind of business analysis position, typically spreadsheets still are very, very familiar and very popular. So one of the things that we might like to do, if I just grab some information here, and we'll give it a new name, like World Tour India. Effectively, I've just created a new ad hoc analysis view on the fly on my mobile. After doing that, what we're going to do is actually go over to my laptop. This is my desk. And if we just log in as a business user here, what you can see there on the left-hand side is that view I just created. So when Brendan mentioned the fact that we're unified and you can use us on web, mobile, and spreadsheets, we really are unified. There's no technical deployment. If we've got security, it instantly applies on any device. So it's very simple to be very effective. So we can continue the analysis directly here on our mobile, on our desktop, without any stop in our activity. Now, whilst we're sort of doing some analysis here and we want to drill down on information, maybe add a couple of sections together or get, say, the average of two components, we've got a lot of flexibility here, but that's not necessarily enough. I mean, if you think of what you can do in a spreadsheet, you tend to be able to do a lot more than just that. So one of the very useful things is that we can even enable the power user to edit this information. And you can see there I can drill down and I can see exactly the same information I was looking at on my mobile device before. But now we're in something which is familiar to most business users because it's like a spreadsheet. We're actually on the web here, but business users know Excel, and that's why we build an interface which is familiar to business users. So if we wanted to change our point of view, we could do that. If we wanted to, say, add a chart onto this, we could just click here and add some sort of visualization there. And of course, we could just add some formulas or calculations onto here because it's just like a spreadsheet. And if it's so much like a spreadsheet, you might say, well, why don't we just actually use a spreadsheet rather than using the web? Well, one of the nice things that we can do here is just effectively push that into the Excel environment. Now, just to preview Brendan, export to Excel is traditionally the most used function in a traditional BI tool. Whatever the tool is, when business users get beyond the functionality in that tool, what do? Export to Excel. So we export to Excel, like everyone else. But what we do different is that we've got an add-in for Excel. We'll come to some of this functionality later in the power user session. But what you can see is, I'm now in a spreadsheet. I could put my grid lines back on there. They've just been hidden. And you can see that I can continue my analysis directly here on the spreadsheet without any kind of stopping. So the big difference is this data, I could even right-click and say drill through to underlying transactions. So this data is live. If there are new customers, new products, new cost centers, new accounts, this will instantly update. There's no batch process anymore. But because we're in Excel, all that same functionality that we know how to use so easily in Excel, we want to change the style here, we want to change the color segments. There's no learning curve there. So what we've done is saved you time in terms of enabling you to manage your data, but you've not lost any effectiveness because the interface is something that you've probably been using your entire career. So that's a starting point to show the journey from mobile to web to Excel. And later on as a power user, you'll see us go a bit the other way. We'll start in Excel, we'll build an ad hoc report and a planning template, and we'll publish that up to the web so that we can push that out to a lot of users. But if we leave that alone for a moment and come back to the web, because we are business users here, we are executives, what we're going to look at now is effectively a planning scenario. It's a very high-level planning scenario. We're going to start with a top-down plan, and then we're going to look at a typical process which is needed in large organizations, which is to manage the workflow. If we have hundreds or even thousands of contributors to our plan, then the importance of having some way of knowing exactly what everybody is up to in that process and controlling where they are becomes critical. And then we're going to switch views from the top-down plan to look at the bottom-up plan. So let's take a look. So if we just go full screen there. So what you can see in front of you is effectively a top-down template. Now we know that in the real world, planning tends to be very complicated, so understand this is a demonstration, and so it's purposely kept simple, so it's fairly quick to understand. I've been personally involved with a lot of enterprise planning projects over the years, and I'm sure anyone who's been involved with these knows that the level of complexity and detail that they go to there's really no limit to it. Every single industry has a lot of nuances and a lot of complexity around it. But we're in demonstration land, so life is a little bit simpler here. And what you can see is that we've helpfully grouped the world into different regions. Under each region, of course, is that we've got different customer segments. Now, below each customer segment, we actually have all of our product categories, but we don't care about them right now. We're not focused on product. We're simply looking at things from a regional perspective where our offices are based. So let's ignore that for a minute. We're looking at these regions, and we might say, look, where's our target for 2016? Rather than doing zero-based budgeting or zero-based planning, we could simply copy this from the prior year actual. And so what we've done with one click is copied into our new plan. We've seeded that with thousands or even millions of data points. It's not just the numbers that we're seeing on the screen. We're doing it for every single product, for every single region. And then we could just start making adjustments to that. So we might increase this by 2%. We might come along and just increase the entire area by 5%. So we're making a top-down change, but it's pushing it down to the lowest level. That's very different from Excel planning. Excel planning, when you do top-down strategic planning, it tends to be disconnected to the operational detail. Now, the same thing for 2017. We might base it on the prior target, and we might want to increase it by 2%, or we might need to make a more sensitive change. So rather than a drop-down, we could use a little wizard here. So the wizard is quite flexible and powerful. You can see we've got things like goal seek. We've even got predictive analytics here, like linear regression. But for now, let's just say that we want to increase it by 4%. We want to add that, execute that, and you can effectively see that change immediately. So you've got the ability of keeping it very simple for business users, maybe with a drop-down, or providing absolute flexibility in terms of what they want to do. Now, for the final 2018 target, rather than a percentage increase, management have basically said that for us to get further investment, we need to hit revenue of 90 million. So rather than playing around with to and fro's, I'm just going to type in 90 million there. And that's pushed that down to the lowest level detail. So within a few minutes, we've basically built a top-down plan that's actually a projection of historical data, so there's some basis. Of course.
So you push 90 million.
Yep.
That's on 2018, and it's taking a uniform increase in every region. But that may not be a real life.
Yep.
Maybe one market is growing at 40%.
Yep.
And one market is just going at this 0.1%.
Yep.
So how do we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as we said, this is demo land, so life is necessarily simpler. So, there are a number of ways that we do that. What we're doing here is sort of increase.
We still want to go 90 and make an adjustment.
Yep. So what we have are some more advanced functionality. One of the areas is goal seek. So that basically can set. We can also lock certain areas. So we could say, perhaps we see no change in Japan. And so when I apply 90, it basically proportionally allocates it on everything else, but leaves that number fixed. And then I come along to Japan and make my tiny change to that. So I make that, 2.5% or something like that. So that's one approach, and there are a number of different ones. So we don't just have to do it across the board. We can make it as specific or detailed. We don't even need to just do it at the country level. We could say, maybe we only want to increase mountain bikes, for example, and leave all the other product categories as they are because they're relatively static. Okay, so we've looked from a strategic perspective. We've looked at revenue. And then after we've done that, the next point is actually to get buy-in from across the organization. So management always come up with great ideas, but ultimately it's about the organization executing on them. And so what we need to do is go through a process of bottom-up collection where we go around to each individual stakeholder all around the world. There might be 500 people, there might be 3,000 people actively involved in this process of building these numbers up. In order to manage this, we would typically want to use an enterprise workflow process. This means that we get a snapshot of every single person or every single department and exactly where they are up into the process. So you can see poor old Antarctica, surprising amount of activity there, but they haven't quite got it right. And you can see that there's a full audit trail of every single change, of who's done a change, what the change was, and what time and date that was done. So if you've used spreadsheets in a planning process and there's been a few stakeholders, it's possible that you've found people have made changes, but nobody knows exactly who made the change or how it ended up change. Everyone tries to do their best, but you're in a hurry, accidents happen, and the numbers get a bit confused. That's because spreadsheets have no audit trail. You know, you save a spreadsheet, the data is in there, it's locked away. What you'll see later is we actually have an audit trail on every single number. You want to see the history of changes on that, you can right-click on that and see every single change there. So in this example, we've got data entry for a lot of different countries here. So they're really at the start of the planning cycle. And in this example, we're going to effectively send out an email automated from Jedox in order to inform the different regional stakeholders that their process has started. So if we now come over to Mr. Smith here, suddenly we're Mr. Smith. And you can see here that we've been sent an email, automatically generated. It's telling me to start my process. And if I just jump into there again. You can see we're logging straight in to Jedox and we're getting exactly the information we need. So we're not really using Jedox, we're using a planning tool. So it can be reflecting exactly how you do your planning process. You can see one of the markets that Mr. Smith is responsible for is India. So we open that report or that template and you can see we're doing planning, but we have a very different view now. It's exactly the same data that the top-down process was applying on, but now instead of looking at regions, we're looking at products. If we drill down, you can see all the product categories. And if we drill down further, we can see each individual SKU in that. Now, we can see the targets that have been handed to us. So we have an absolute reference point at the most granular level of what's expected of us. However, because we're actually look at things from a much more operational perspective, we don't just simply think in revenue numbers, in currency. We actually think in terms of operational activity. So our planning process is more driver-based. That's what we call it, where we have business drivers, operational activity, which drive revenue and drive costs. So in this example, we've got units. We've got assumptions based on what the unit price is, which might include other aspects like cost of goods sold, etc. And then these build up our revenues based on these drivers. So again, we could say, let's copy what's been provided to us by our target, because that's what management have clearly told us they want. However, reality is that nobody's buying this off-road bicycle anymore. So why don't we just clear that one out and leave that one blank? So what we're doing now is not just sort of high-level assumptions and changes, we're adjusting it based on our intimate knowledge of the market and of our particular business area. Now, once we've made all of our adjustments to our planning process, we can simply update our workflow status, send a message to our boss, proceed with that, which of course would send an email. Our boss would open, reject, and approve, and the process would continue. We're not going to do that today. But what you can see is, while we can still read our numbers, they're locked down. So there's no risk of me saying, hey, I finished, and then 5 minutes later having a change of heart, coming back and making those changes. Of course, that would be possible if our boss rejected it, we came back and we could make a change. But suddenly we've got control over a process. When people have sent information in, you start looking at your high-level summary and reports, and you tell the CFO, the group CFO, what the revenue numbers, you don't have to worry that they're going to change 5 minutes later because everybody's still not made their mind up. So there we have it. We've done top-down, we've done workflow, and then we've done bottom-up. And of course, in the real world, it doesn't stop there. It might go around again and again and again and again. But that's our planning scenario. So from here, I'm going to hand back to my colleague Brendan.
Thank you very much, David. That's some cool flexibility, especially for the business user. But then if we have a look, let's say, to the power user. So how many people, let's say, would classify themselves, let's say, as a power user in their organization? Yeah, okay, well, so, where's my mouse? So, a power user, and the power user's dilemma inside or in an organization is that they're generally the professionals who need to have a sophisticated and flexible solution to meet the business needs inside an organization. Generally, people want to be agile, they want to be fast, you want to be able to keep up with, let's say, the pace of business as well, so they want to be able to configure their system quickly. And of course, it needs to be cost-effective in terms of licensing, implementation, and administration. So, the one tool that most power users on the planet turn to is Excel. There's 1 billion Excel users on the planet. And if I were to ask a question today, how many people here would use Excel in their organization? It would probably be everybody, right? Exactly, right? And there's a reason behind it. And it's because everyone loves Excel, right? It's low cost, it's simple, it's accessible, it's fast, it's flexible. I would say everyone here will be nodding, yes, yeah, it makes sense. Now I'd say the next question would be, how many organizations have a lot of messy spreadsheets in their organization? Where you have maybe an over-reliance on spreadsheets. It's like spreadsheets are maybe used for business-critical processes and they're disconnected from everything. So of course, there's a lot of challenges with Excel as well. Not only that, are they, let's say, can be off, but of course, they can be very maintenance intensive. People here who are working, let's say, with big Excels, are they easy or are they not easy to, let's say, maintain? Like, do they generally, let's say, help you in your organization? Do you have to spend a lot of time on it? Is it labor intensive? It's very possible to make, let's say, a lot of errors, small errors in Excel, which of course create huge problems, let's say, at a later date. And of course, as soon as you're in Excel, you're siloed. So the Jedox approach is, let's keep the benefits of Excel, but remove the challenges. So just like magic. But of course, how do we do that? So with Jedox, we use, just as David was showing, we use spreadsheets as a front end to the data. There's no data inside in Excel. The data is inside in the Jedox in-memory OLAP database, where business users create their models on their data. The data comes in through the Jedox ETL, so we've got very powerful connectors which allow you to connect to practically any data source. We've got some customers, one customer who's got data coming from 166 different data sources into Jedox. And then we've got very powerful security as well, as David was saying, is that we can lock down people just be able to view, let's say, either even to a particular cell, that they have access just to view it, or they can write into it and so on. And as you were seeing as well, is that we have the 3 different front ends. We've got web, mobile, and spreadsheet. So the concept of Jedox is that we call it Excel Plus, is that don't replace Excel, because many companies come and sort of say, okay, we've got this, fantastic silver bullet which will get rid of all of your spreadsheet problems in your organization, and have been trying to do it for the last 15 years, and everybody's failed. And as David was saying earlier as well, is that a lot of companies, they have that wonderful export to Excel button that business users want, because it's like you can, especially when it comes to BI, you can visualize your data very, very well. and you have all of that beautiful visualizations. But when you want to start working with your data and planning with your data, what do people do? We export to Excel, and you get back then into all of the challenges with Excel. So what a lot of people call spreadsheet hell. So I know it's kind of a stylized diagram, but a lot of people nod and sort of say, yes, this is kind of what our organization looks like, is that spreadsheets can be uncontrollable in an organization. So at Jedox, what we do is that we simplify the planning and analysis and reporting. What we do, and we turn these messy spreadsheets into structured enterprise solutions about what you saw a little bit earlier and what you're going to see again quite shortly. So with Jedox, it allows you to connect, model, and collaborate. So as I said, Jedox collectors make it easy to connect to your corporate data, wherever it is. As I said, we can connect to practically any data source. You can model very easily. The business users can create and share their models very easy. So again, companies or departments using one single version of the truth, but maybe HR has got their own model, marketing has got their own model, sales has their own, and so on. And then they don't have to start exporting to Excel and sort of like pulling, let's say, the data, let's say, into a silo location, because everyone's working with the same data. So that even though people are still working the way that they want in their spreadsheet environment, the data is still the data. And then, of course, the business users have, let's say, their nice front end and their dashboards, and of course have the option of mobility as well. So what we shall do now is we shall, Dave will head into the demonstration. Use your mouse. for the power user.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon. So what we saw previously was what Jedox can deliver to the business user. Now we're going one level below that to understand how a power user can do this themselves. How somebody who can be quite good at spreadsheets can also instantly be good at Jedox. You don't need to have 10 years of IT experience to be capable in Jedox. So what we're going to look at is we're going to start with some data in a spreadsheet. Now that's because I'm running this demonstration from my laptop, but that data source could be SAP, it could be Salesforce, it could be any other number of different operational systems. But we're simply using a spreadsheet to start with to make it very clear what you can see the before and after. Then what we're going to do is connect to that data, as Brendan said. We're going to create a model inside Jedox, and that model is going to hold the data from the spreadsheet, but it's also going to hold our business structures, our cost center hierarchies, our account hierarchies. So in technical speak, that's what we call our metadata. Then we're going to demonstrate how within a few seconds we can actually be planning and analyzing on this data with nothing else to do. And then finally, we're going to do some ad hoc report creation and publish that out to the web. As soon as we have that on the web, you might have 3,000 people logging in via their mobile devices from anywhere in the world, being able to securely access that information and collaborate on their data. So this is our humble spreadsheet. And to explain what we're looking at, somebody has done a really good job of doing the best they can with a spreadsheet in this example. So over on the left-hand side, we've got some data that's been exported from SAP or NetSuite or any other number of systems. So this should be quite familiar to people. Just a large, quite relentless table of numbers. It's not enormous, it's 9,000 rows, but it can start getting quite painful once you start seeing changes. Now, in order to make something meaningful, you can see a normal process in Excel is to start creating a bunch of, say, pivot tables on that data. Of course, that does the trick, but they're totally manual. So if the data changes tomorrow, you have to go back and check every step to make sure nothing's broken. So it's effectively consolidated the data by different groupings. And then, with the help of a few of the usual kind of bits of Excel trickery, namely VLOOKUPs, they've turned it into a planning template. So quite honestly, this is better than I see in some organizations. Some organizations don't even have this. This is as kind of as good as you can get without using VB in a spreadsheet. However, it's not a collaboration tool. It's something that I as an individual can use. But if we have 500 people doing the same thing around the world, how do we instantly see that data consolidated together? We need to have another manual process in order to see that. 2 days later, management say, let's make a top-down change. How do you get that data back out to everyone? It's all manual. So what we're going to do today is take the data out of the spreadsheet, connect to it, and put the data into a Jedox model. So we saw this add-in up here. Now we're starting to explore the functionality and the power in this connection into Jedox. For this component, we're going to use data-driven modeling. Data-driven modeling is, as the name suggests, means that we can create a model based on the data that we're providing Jedox. And as soon as I'd hit next there, effectively, Jedox has scanned the spreadsheet and it's identified some characteristics there. So we can see a column there with cost center IDs in them, and then we can see some grouping around those as well. Now, like any tool, it's making an assumption there. It might not be exactly how we want it to appear. So we can come along and make any sort of change that we need to on that as well. Perhaps we want the date in a different format. We've got a lot of predefined flexibility there to set the dates up. Or we could come along and put even just a custom view in there. So what you have is the power, the simplicity of something that's wizard-based, which means you can get up and going very quickly, but the flexibility of being able to make any adjustment throughout that process. Now, let's create a new project. Let's call it World Tour. And database, let's call it IND. And we'll call the cube costs, because that's the data that we're looking at. So once we hit execute, Jedox is effectively taking the information, making a load process, which we'll see later on in the Jedox integrator, and creating a brand new model for us inside Jedox. So we've updated the model with your data. Let's start by taking a look at this model inside Jedox. We click on here, because remember we're now in the power user view. You can see we've got this tool called Modeler, and this basically sees the structures for our information. There's our cost model, and you can see the different ways that we can analyze that information. So if we drill down on cost center there, you can see rather than a few columns in a spreadsheet, we now have a very clean hierarchy based on that. And the flexibility is that we could even come along and start making further changes to this. We don't just need to keep importing data into Jedox. We can just make changes to our model on the fly. We can see our cost elements here. We can see our versions or data types here. And we could even add a new version in here. So maybe we've got another version called forecast or estimate, and we want to adjust that as well when we come to our planning. We've also got the date of each transaction held in there. And the format of that might be year and month. It might be down to week. It really depends on the data that you're looking at. In this example, it's transactions, so they're down to the day level. And finally, we're capturing the individual values, the measures that we're pushing into this model. But maybe we also need to capture some commentary. So now you can see when we actually go to use this, we can not just look at our numbers, but we can say why. We can type in some words there and explain why we're looking at these. So that's our model. Step one, save that somewhere. Step one is that we can immediately do ad hoc analysis on this. So we paste a new view here, and this is purposely designed to look and feel a little bit like a pivot table, because again, if it ain't broke, people know how to use functionality in spreadsheets. Well, why approach it from a completely different angle when you can build on that familiarity? The difference is, of course, the data is not coming from another tab in a spreadsheet. It's coming from a unified, centralized Jedox model that everyone in the world can be connecting to. But if we want to, say, drag our cost centers down here, and let's just pick the 4 categories, and drag our dates across here, we could drill down and, say, pick our 4 quarters there. We could paste that information out, and it's immediately available inside Jedox. I could drill down, and you can see how we're just looking at the numbers there. Well, if we come back in, we might say, let's put our names on there instead. So now that we can see the user-friendly names. And we might have different names for different languages and different regions, etc. All of that's quite easy to do. Of course, being Excel, if I wanted to, we could just insert a chart onto here. And that chart is completely dynamic because the data is now coming from Jedox. Finally, if we wanted to change this information, there's no limitation in terms of the format here. So if I want to stick this column over here, if I want to copy this column and change the date that it's referring to, the information automatically updates. So it's completely dynamic. So now that we have this report, or this analysis view, let's go back and tackle the planning example that we saw before. So if you remember, we had all these pivot tables that somebody had painstakingly put together, and we'd ended up with this report template. So what we're going to do is just copy that report template into the other workbook. We'll keep this other one here called, say, analysis, and we'll keep this one and we'll call that planning. That means that we could even shut down that existing workbook. And you can see at the moment we have pretty crazy, because now it's linking it to the other workbook, we've got pretty crazy VLOOKUPs. And I'm sure you know, as soon as you start working workbooks across folders, that can be a recipe for disaster unless you spend 3/4 of your job checking and reconciling rather than doing analysis. So we want to fix our planning process. We want to make it easier to administer. But the business user is actually very familiar with the style of planning that we do. So we don't want to actually change what the business users do. We just want to actually deal with the data problems and automate that. So what we're going to do is effectively just select some cells like that, use a lovely little formula here called paste data, and suddenly we now have Jedox formulas that are connected to Jedox. So there's no more VLOOKUPs. The data is not coming from a spreadsheet anymore. It's now coming from that Jedox model that we created. That means if we came up here and say, paste that element there, we could effectively now use a hierarchy to filter and sort on that information because all the information is coming from Jedox. Let's do the same for the prior year. And in fact, let's also update our budget, our estimate, and our comments. So now we have a template that, from a business user's perspective, hasn't changed one moment, one small amount. So now the business users, there's no extensive training course they need to go on. Nobody needs to sort of roll out this new budgeting process. From their perspective, they're doing the same thing. But the difference is we've got all of that functionality we saw a moment ago in Jedox. I'll just do this from an ad hoc perspective. Let's just say copy our actuals across. I could even say, let's say 4 million like budget. Oops. If I type it. Oops, I mustn't have called it budget. I'll just copy the actuals across. The estimate, I didn't copy that across. So anyway, we've got our budget in here, and we could make those same sorts of changes that we saw previously. And we could capture our commentary in here as well. So that commentary is not stored in the spreadsheet. As Brendan said, the spreadsheet is simply a window into the world of Jedox, a window into the data. All the data is stored in one place. All the business rules are stored in one place, the workflow, the security, the audit trail, but the business users are still using this environment. So let's just go back to this view for a moment. We've taken some existing data in Excel. We've made a model inside Jedox. We've done some ad hoc analysis on that model. And we've actually transformed an existing planning template into a Jedox planning template. Now, the final aspect is that while we have this add-in into Excel, very powerful, we've got 5,000 people who we want to be accessing this data. And while the power users love using Jedox via the Excel environment, the other business users, we just want them to access via the web. So what we can do is just simply publish this up to the web by hitting publish. That's our new plan template for 2016. We've done a new version of it. And for the tech people in the audience, and I'm sure there's a few, we're using Excel as a design. It's been converted into a very light, a very highly functional HTML5 page. Nothing's connected to the spreadsheet after we publish it. It's all web and connecting live to Jedox. So we've published that across. And if we come now back to the web here, we'll simply go into our report rights here, refresh our structure here, come down under there, and you can see there's our new template 2016. I'm going to give it a user-friendly name, let's say for English, and if I could speak German, I would put something here. So we can have multi-language ability very easily here. And as I'm administrator, I'm going to give myself access on my menu. So we go back to the main, and now we can see our 2016 budget there. We click on that, and it's exactly the same from the business user's perspective. We're just now using the spreadsheet. You can see, because we're looking at the same information there, you can even see the comment. And if I type new in there, or comment in there, if I come along back to the Excel environment, come over here, refresh that, oops, I moved it around, you can see the information coming. So it doesn't matter where you're doing it. I'm making my change on my iPad, on my Android phone, through the spreadsheet. It's all moving back to Jedox into the one version of the truth. We could also do the ad hoc analysis that we saw a moment ago, because that's available here in the web as well. So the next part is really, again, for those who are more technical in the audience to understand that it's not just magic, because sometimes you might want to publish it, but you want to do more to it. There might be some additional functions. You saw some cool stuff that we showed on the iPad before, and maybe not all that functionality is available in the spreadsheet. So what we can easily do is come along and even edit that in the web. And we might want to start adding some new aspects to this. So perhaps rather than making this a static template, you can see that these are kind of statically listed because we started with that in the spreadsheet. We might even select a bunch of these and say, let's make this row completely dynamic. So we've got a lot of functionality here. We won't be covering all of it off. There's a very useful thing called a subset. And if we just go and grab that example model for a moment, and we look at our cost elements, and perhaps say, let's just base it on everything underneath all cost elements. So we've got a grouping, and this is for sorting, for filtering, etc. There's a lot of flexibility in here. We paste that down, and now you can see is, I could delete those other rows, and if I preview that, you can see now it's completely dynamic. So we've got the ability of even starting with something that's quite structured in Excel, but quite static, and make it more and more robust and more dynamic. If we wanted to, we could, say, add a widget onto here. And that widget might include pulling information from another environment. We might want to put a Google map on here. So we're connecting the data in Jedox with something else. So now you can see that we've just exposed a web page inside the Jedox environment. They're just two very simple examples, but if we see here, we switch into user mode, it's all the very nice lockdown environment, but we've got the ability of making any kind of change in here. We can only change the numbers here, but we can't change the structure anymore. So typically we would, you'd be updating the plan or the forecast inside Jedox. So the actuals would flow through from the feed from, say, SAP, and nobody could make changes to those numbers. You can. It's a security. It's up to you. As administrator, I have full control to do anything. And so it's just a selective security that you apply. So one approach that we do, we could either enable you just to make adjustments directly to those numbers, if that's what you wanted. So sometimes, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you might want it for reporting purposes. But often what we do is we might have an adjustment measure in there. So you've got the original data, and then you've got an audit trail of all the adjustments. And so visually, it's very easy to see the combination of both of those. So you've got exactly what's come through, and then you can see all the changes that you've made to that. Only if you wanted them to. It's kind of up to you. I mean, you either...
And it's paradoxical, right? That
Yeah.
On one hand, you're saying that it will be a live update from a system, from a backend system. On the other side, we can make adjustments, but those adjustments won't stay for long because, again, there'll be a live update.
Well, let me try and explain it visually. Imagine everything's loaded into actuals, yeah? And I might have an adjustment measure in there. So actuals, perhaps nobody's allowed to make updates, but I can make updates to my adjustment, and I might even say have a consolidated value, which is simply the aggregation between the two of them. So if I wanted it to, reverse out a number, I just might call it minus in there. So there are a number of different ways, but what you can see is those numbers constantly get refreshed. These numbers only get manually done. Now, of course, if the actuals are getting changed to another number, maybe the adjustment is not relevant anymore, so you still have to go back and check what you've done, but you've got that full audit trail in there. And like you saw before, we could paste that out, have them as two columns, and you could exactly see the original value, the change value, and the final value next to each other. Yep.
So do we have flexibility here to see the visualization, the changes we are making, how it is impacting the overall planning?
Yeah. So even in this example here, you can see we've just included. So effectively, there is no restriction in terms of your combination of visuals and numbers. It's really up to your imagination in terms of what the most intuitive layout is. But you can combine, say, entry areas and have any kind of visualization on the library of visualizations next to that at the same time.
Yeah, that part is coming along with the Jedox platform, or do we need to have a separate tool to really do the visualization part of it?
So I think you saw at the beginning, I started with my mobile, and we started with a dashboard, for example. So let me just show you a couple of examples just to remind ourselves. So this is where we started. So we started here at the beginning of the presentation, except it was on my iPad. So you can see here that we're visualizing things by geography. We've got charts here. We can drill down on that. So, and that's obviously a very simple example. If we really want to go down, there's effectively no limit in terms of the types of visualizations that we might apply. You can see here we've got some HR visualizations by a lot of different aspects. So there's a rich library of different kinds of visualizations. You can see here's a sales planning. I drill down on that. I can analyze that by different areas just by clicking on it. I drill down and I move along. So all of this functionality is Jedox functionality. That's why we say we simplify planning and we simplify analysis. And you want the long version, it's reporting and analysis. I like just to say analysis. Because planning is all about what's going to be happening. But if you want to be doing analysis, okay, maybe if you're in finance, the only thing you want to look at is a nice P&L, this big. But if you're in any other business department around the organization, having a nice graph makes a big difference, or visualization in order to understand the numbers. So my point was that you can have any combination of say, planning. You might update your, maybe here rather than be late looking at a top 10, maybe this aspect here is my planning template where I make my adjustments, and maybe here is my visualizations. Or if we took one more example just to really illustrate this. If I look at my plan here, it's another planning scenario. I've got allocations here, and you can see here are my different allocations methodologies. I'm sure I won't explain allocations. Anyone who's done budgeting will know what allocations are for. And you can see down here, I can instantly visualize, that's quite subtle, how that portion will be allocated by department or by geography. So as I said, there's no limit in terms of your imagination. Well, it's up to your imagination. It's limited by your imagination in terms of how you combine the most appropriate visualizations with the planning template, for example. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Cool. Great. So, does anybody else have any other questions before we continue? The final aspect, once we've made our reports and adjustments and everything, the last bit we need to do is just acknowledge that in any large project, Brendan mentioned the example of 166 data sources. I think you're exaggerating. It's only like 158. But, I don't know where you got that number from. But one important thing is data integration. So we've talked about the fact that we can connect to any data source. And one of the really useful things is the way that Jedox is built is even though you've got wizards that do things for you like the data-driven modeling, it's actually creating standard, using standard Jedox functionality. So you can see here, this is a project that was effectively created by that data-driven modeling. And we can actually come along and make any change to this. Effectively, we're exporting Excel data, we're loading it into a model, and we're creating things like a cost center hierarchy. So it's all extremely understandable and intuitive. Anyone who's used an integration tool, it's ETL, and they're all kind of the same. You know, you extract data, you transform data, you load data. How complex that transformation piece really is up to you in terms of how much manipulation you want to do with your data. So Jedox gives you a lot of depth there. You can even use the statistical language R in those transformations if you want to do very sophisticated analysis. But in this example, you can see here we started with our Excel file, and here it is on the right-hand side. If we wanted to, we could easily just create another connection to another system here. So rather than exporting data into the spreadsheet, loading it into Jedox, we want to connect Jedox directly to that system. Let's say it was Oracle. Effectively there, we just connect through to Oracle, and we would point at the information we require inside Oracle, say it's a data warehouse, and pull that through into Jedox directly. So that's the Jedox. It's a it's a 60,000 degree view of, or 60,000 foot view of what the integration manager does. And because we're in that mode of talking a little bit about the enterprise features of Jedox in terms of the architecture, we'll come to security later on. We've got a good diagram that illustrates more how that works. But what you can see is we've got a full audit trail on all our information. So if we come to the example that we were looking at before and drill down on that change, every single change that I made before is all audited and logged. So every single change for a single number, we can go back and see the exact history, what it was 5 minutes ago, what it was 10 minutes ago, what it was 2 days ago. If we have Jedox being used, say, by 20 people, most Jedox environments, whether you use the Jedox cloud or use it internally, it really manages itself. You don't need an IT administrator. You might have someone in finance who, when they want to do a new budget cycle, makes a few changes, but it's not an environment that needs sort of supervision. That said, if you're going to push it out to 2,000 or 5,000 people and they're going to be using it all day, every day, Jedox has a lot of enterprise features in terms of monitoring the environment. So you can see here very quickly we can do basically analysis and visualization, real-time analysis on any aspect of the Jedox environment.
Okay, David, just before we go to IT, we're going to have, let's say, a quick break.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
before we get into the heavy-duty stuff. So what we'll do, everybody, we'll take, let's say, a quick 10-15 minute break, and then we'll continue on with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much. So what we'll do is let's stick to the timetable. So what we'll do is we'll continue now with David and Jedox for IT.
Excellent, excellent. I was going to pick that up because I'd stood up. Funnily enough, for this section, we're talking about IT. We don't show the product at all. So instead, what we're going to deal with is some of the fundamental questions that are very important to anyone who's responsible for enterprise deployments or rollouts. Now, the first component is the Jedox architecture. Most products have a diagram like this. The thing I like about the Jedox one is that it's very easy to understand. Fundamentally, Jedox is a full stack. It's got integration, it's got an in-memory OLAP database, and it's got the user interface or the presentation layer through Excel, web, and mobile. But because it's been designed from the ground up as one application, I'm sure you've worked with some mega vendors who have bought some different products over the years. They look great perhaps in a demo, but when you start drilling down, different code bases, different technical skill sets to maintain it, you need different consultants in to actually deploy it. Jedox is different from that perspective. So let's run through this. First, we've got data sources. We saw spreadsheet example before with the data-driven modeling, but typically that might be your ERP, it might be your data warehouse, it might be certain applications, cloud-based applications like Salesforce. It could be SAP. We use the Jedox integrator to connect to these and pull that information. So Jedox takes the information and brings that into the in-memory database. We compress the data by a factor of over 20, and we also enable transactional drill-through. So we have an option of what level of detail we pull into the model. When the data is inside Jedox, we hold the data, we hold the metadata, we hold the business rules and calculations in memory, so they calculate in real time. We hold the security layer, we hold the audit trail and all the logs. So fundamentally, that's the Jedox in-memory database. We have an option for big data for planning. So this is the accelerator component, and we use something called GPU, which effectively goes beyond what CPUs do in terms of calculation and enables hundreds or even thousands of parallel processes. We've got third-party connectors. So in tech speak, we've got an ODBO XMLA output, which means that anybody who's got a tool which can query that data, i.e. it might generate MDX like a pivot table or a Tableau or some other device, they can actually query that data in Jedox as well. And then, of course, we've got the user interfaces, which is really the little bit of Jedox, of the iceberg, if you like, above the waterline that people interact. In terms of deployment, you can do it the traditional way, which is in your own data center. You can do it standalone. You can do it on your own private cloud if you've got existing cloud infrastructure agreements, or you can use the Jedox cloud. And Jedox cloud, as you'll see in a moment, we've partnered with AWS and with Microsoft on the Azure platform to provide this at data centers around the world. Now this is where we go one step beyond. This is that diagram that it's almost impossible to read this, to be honest, from where you sit, but it's what I like to call the all-you-can-eat. So when we say data integration, you can see here we're enumerating to a much more granular detail all the different data sources that we can pull through. So relational databases like DB2, like Ingress, generic JDBC, generic ODBC. For those of you who know, JDBC connections are faster than ODBC. That's a little bit older technology, so we can support both. MySQL, Oracle, etc. We've got file access. So of course, spreadsheets, CSVs, flat files, but also JSON, XML, and other different protocols. SAP systems, so we can connect to BW, we can connect direct to the ERP, R3, ECC6, etc., and to SAP HANA. We've got connections to Qlik and Tableau. We've got connections to Salesforce. And then finally, we've also got web services. So if you want to connect to a website to pull the latest exchange rates, we've got, say, RESTful web services to connect there. From the front end, yes, we have the Excel add-in, but we do have a Word and PowerPoint add-in as well. I.e., if you've got a chart in PowerPoint, you want to refresh that chart, you don't have to manually copy and paste it into the PowerPoint. You just can click on the Jedox icon, and it can refresh it with the latest data. You can generate PDFs and Excel files, etc., from the web as well. So from my perspective, business users get the best value out of Jedox when they're interacting with their data. We're not trying to second guess what they're most interested in. We're just giving them flexible self-service access. But if we want to, we can generate still, say, daily sales reports and push that out to everyone via email, etc. I mentioned the MDX front ends up there as well. The infrastructure, the cloud runs on AWS and Azure, and for on-prem, we can run on Windows, Linux, etc. Finally, from a security perspective, we connect into Active Directory, LDAP, and enable single sign-on. So if you've got an existing model, sorry, please. You mean like HubSpot or things like that? So Salesforce, yes. Well, to Salesforce proper, if you like. So, yeah, CRM. So, yeah, the HubSpot one, etc. Not at this stage, no. So, we actually use HubSpot internally at Jedox as well. So that's why it was the first thing that came to mind. So what we do is that we actually pull data from HubSpot into Salesforce, for example, and then we connect via Salesforce. That said, I haven't personally looked into it, but because we have these generic connectors, like the SOAP web services and the RESTful web services, I'm sure it's technically possible. It's just not like a predefined icon in the selection item at this point. Yeah, we can use what the API would be from, depending on the tool, and we can use the Jedox connectivity, but it's not, say, like the Salesforce one, where it's kind of, you've got a fast start where it's got predefined, it knows where the opportunities are and picks up all that by default. No problem. So any other questions from a all-you-can-eat diagram?
Quite a few things. One of for Saintco, we built that for R. So now if it's for Eloqua or for any other tool which can come on our way, I think those integrations can be built. The only advantage on this is the tool is so flexible that the integration is not like a project. It can be done in a few days or weeks maximum. And that integration can be then become one of those tools which can be also available as preset with the licensing model.
Very good. And the final part is customization. So when you're modeling, when you're planning, Jedox has a rules engine. And this is the most powerful thing for doing calculations, because it works a bit like people think in Excel, except we talk in natural language. So rather than A1 times B2 equals C3, we say volume times units. Easy to understand. However, you can basically customize every aspect of Jedox. There are APIs, including C, Java, VB, etc. So there is really a lot of depth there if you want to go down that technical rabbit hole and make customizations. I mentioned in Jedox Integrator that we incorporate the R statistical language, and we can also incorporate, along with the standard Jedox components, you can add Groovy, Java, JavaScript, etc. Of the web, you can use PHP. There's a full Jedox PHP API, and you can even create what are called PHP macros there. So, as someone personally who did a lot of technical projects many years ago, I love the fact that you can have a tool where 95% of what you do is out of the box. You create a model, you've got all of that cool planning functionality, it just works. There's no definition of it. I also love the fact that you've got these super extra bits of extensibility. When you've got some unique bit of functionality that someone wants, you've got confidence that the tool's got the capability there in order to meet that. We don't have a full stop there. That's why having all those APIs and those other enterprise connectivity things are very important. Security and compliance. So we break this into 4 sections. We've got infrastructure security, and that's, as we touched on a moment ago, that's where we've got things like single sign-on. So we integrate into your enterprise security requirements. Then the platform itself is multi-tiered, whether you stick it internally on one server or multiple servers, but every aspect of Jedox, the integrator, the database, uses secure communication protocols. The application itself has security or role-based rights, So you might have someone in IT who's allowed to run integration projects, and maybe they can add new users via the help desk, but they don't see the confidential financial data or payroll data inside the budget model. Finally, on the data level, that's the most important level. So a cost center manager might be responsible for a certain number of employees. They can only see their salaries, they can't see anybody else's. So you've got full capability to control that at a very, very granular level. And finally, the future. So we've been watching Jedox 6, which is the current release. Later this year, we're releasing Jedox 6.5, and then shortly after is Jedox 7. So some of the things in train are Jedox, as Brennan mentioned from the start, it's a German company, so its roots really came from a lot of advanced manufacturing industries. So global companies like ABB, we work with BMW, organizations like this, they have a real focus on production intelligence, which some of you may be aware of, and Jedox is part of a research consortium in terms of using the GPU technology to deliver that. There's building out mobile capability and performance, and there's a new modeler as well, which predefines a lot of business rules so that we can have predefined rules for HR sales. So organizations with their unique requirements, maybe they're always going to be unique, but everyone else who says, let's start with the standard model and make adjustments to it, it's an accelerator in terms of very quickly delivering these things. So that's the end of the technical part. Does anybody have any further technical questions, or have we just covered technology to such a degree that everyone feels they understand this completely? Okay.
One of the common problems of the IT team for drawing, especially when you work with whether it's Oracle IT or GCP or every Cosmos, when you do typical planning and analytics, the data processing capability. Today, 10 years back, I work with 2 million records, 5 million records. Today, people are talking about 500 million records, 800 million records, we process in real time. Right? So, how do you see that? That can be taken care by Jedox, or is there any limitation to those?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Jedox, I was saying this before, there are different databases out there. So you've got relational databases, which are traditional, which are transactional. You've got OLAP in-memory databases, which are multidimensional, which is Jedox. So it's very good it's very good for the business user because it kind of works the way they think. They don't have to write SQL queries. It's slicing and dicing information. When you're talking about planning processes, planning data, even big planning models, don't tend to go to like 500 million records. Planning tends to be at a higher level than, say, transactional data. If you're doing something like POS analytics, which is the first one that came to mind before, so it's still the same one, where it is really transactional data, that's where you can start building out. And so, like any system, design is critical. So having the right approach for what you want to do to get the best out of the system is very important. On the other side, Jedox does have, I mentioned it before, this GPU accelerator. So we have a technology or platform approach to accelerating on big data. And that's basically, just to spell it out, if you think of a CPU, it might have 4 cores, 8 cores, 16, 32 cores, but it's in that sort of framework. So Jedox is what we call multi-threaded. You make a change, it'll split it 32 ways and return that to a user. So it accelerates the speed to have more cores, and it accelerates like the average performance over, say, 1,000 users. But what GPU enables is that there might be 500 cores on a GPU card, not just 8 or 16. And you can have multiple GPU cards, and the performance scales linearly. So if you think of a large organization, one's Deutsche Bank, they have a pretty large server. It's got a gig of RAM on there, and they run very large models which drill down into underlying transactions for their private and banking business clients. And they heavily use the GPU technology in Jedox because it's kind of the next step beyond in-memory. In-memory is pretty popular these days. My opinion, in-memory's been around for a long time. It's only because RAM is cheaper that it's now, possible to do these things. But GPU is like the next generation of that because it's going on beyond the capability of the CPU. So that was a long answer, but there's two aspects. One is the usual things of design, of just coming up with the appropriate architecture, and that's why we have, a trusted partner like Valforma here with experts who can help advise you on the right approach. And the second one is what Jedox provides, which is pretty unique. SAP HANA doesn't do it, BPC certainly not, etc., is providing that GPU capability.
If an organization is having an existing investment on an ETL, a very popular ETL, say Informatica, data stage, and they want to use the OLAP piece from Jedox to do the planning bit and the advanced forecasting.
Yeah.
And is there any utility through which I can access the OLAP of Jedox using my existing Informatica data stage or ODI?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Jedox provides the integration component, and there are actually some third-party ETL tools out there like Talend and Kettle, which include Jedox connectors. So you could do your entire integration in Talend and push the data into the OLAP engine. There aren't connectors for, say, Informatica, but there are two approaches which can be very useful. Number one is, as an ETL tool, you extract, you transform, and load. If we're pulling data from a source system, then often we have to do a lot of transformation to get the data in the right shape. If we're pulling data from a data warehouse, most of that transformation and restructuring has already been done before it's anywhere near Jedox. So all we're really doing is extract and load. We're still using the Jedox integrator, but it's not doing much. It's really select star from this table or something like that. So that's one aspect where we're still keeping a little bit of Jedox integrator in there, but all the technical work sits with your existing team who've got that existing expertise, and we're simply just using Jedox as a way of telling Jedox what we want to use for what. The other aspect is you saw that diagram before with the APIs, you can load data into Jedox directly through the APIs. You don't need to use the integration tool at all, actually. So from Informatica, that could be, I say could because I've not seen that personally done anywhere, but you could actually trigger and push the data through those APIs instead of actually using the integration tool. So therefore, you would do the entire process inside Informatica.
And second question is that do we have something like a marketplace for app for partners where they can design some solutions, and if it is there, do you have any strategy from Jedox in that direction if somebody wants to create some industry accelerator catering to a specific piece, and if that is there, what skill sets in terms of technology will need to achieve that?
Yeah, that's a really relevant question, I would say. There are two aspects. Number one is we do have a Jedox Solutions site, which is available from jedox.com. And the purpose of this is basically to showcase the expertise of different partners in different domains. So an example is PwC have treasury solutions on there because they have bundled all their IP in that particular area and productized it into a Jedox solution that basically is configured, but 95% of it is predefined. So that's been the traditional approach. But actually, just literally before I went to the airport to come here yesterday, the head of R&D from Jedox gave me a sneak preview of the next release of Jedox that's coming. And this has really been the focus. You see on the right-hand side that pre-built model concept. So Jedox is going to be delivering a range of these models But the actual architecture of the product is going to be pretty much what you described, in which case it won't just be, the framework will be not just for Jedox to be able to provide that, but for partners and other solutions providers to be providing it in that marketplace as well. So in that environment, you'll basically be able to do that within the Jedox environment itself. You come in, select a package, collect it, bring it into Jedox, and it will update every aspect inside Jedox and bring that model across.
Thank you.
No problem. Further questions before we... Great. So the next stage, perhaps you'd like to introduce us, Michelle.
Good morning all. My name is Satish. I'm coming from Renault Technology Business Center, India. I am responsible for cost controlling, planning and financial analysis for Renault Nissan India for their captive center, which is based out of Chennai. I'd like to thank first Jedox and Malforma for inviting me. I've been using Jedox for over 2 years, and I would like to share our experiences and how things have transformed in our company after using Jedox. So first, I'd like to give a brief of what we do. The financial systems before in our company before we started using Jedox, then what were the possible options we were looking at, and what was the transformations once we had implemented Jedox in our company, and what is the results. So we are a joint venture company of Renault and Nissan, basically established in Chennai in 2008. We support engineering developments of Renault Nissan Global for their remote engineering projects, and also for the local development projects of the plant, which is also based out of Chennai. We started like a few hundred employees in 2008 to around 6,000 plus employees in this current financial year, and are hoping to grow much more. We started basically with engineering support services, and from that we moved on to local development activities, finance and accounting, outsourcing, translation services, all the other business support services which you could think of, which a captive could do to a global conglomerate like Renault and Nissan. So here I'm just given an illustration of our financial systems before. Before we had Jedox, this was way around in 2012. So we started, as I said, in 2008 with few employees and scaled up to 6,000 now. So, but the finance systems which we had were still at the stage what we were in 2008, where Excel was very comfortable for us to do all the systems, and the number of reports to be done was very less in 2008, and we were using the same financial systems even in 2012 as well. So as you could see, we had like the many divisions: engineering division, finance accounting divisions, local products, special projects, all these which I call as divisions here. And each division had a separate cost control who takes care of the P&L of this particular department. So basically, we use SAP for our financial data. So each of the cost controllers extracts data from SAP. Then they process it in the P&L. They compare it with the budget for the variance analysis. They prepare an Excel which is in a different format, and these are saved in the different user folders. And finally, the consolidation team has to go through the pain of consolidating the different reports which are in different format and come out with a final management report, wherein they track all the KPIs and present it to the management. So as I've represented here, so there are separate Excel databases. Files were stored in different locations. Lack of traceability. It's easy for the data to get corrupt. If one person deletes a data, we don't know who deleted it and what is the result. There are like 100 plus files each month for preparing P&Ls and variance analysis. And each person has their own format, and it's difficult to convince them to adopt a different format. So these were some difficulties. So from the date of book closure till the final report, it took about 2 to 3 weeks for us to prepare, and by the time the next month would start. So basically the value addition which we were doing was very less, and we were more focused on collecting data and then preparing reports. So that was the main thing. So as I said, these were the key challenges: lag in reporting, more manual work. We did not do much value addition to the business as a business partner. No standard methodology, and it was a lot of complications because there were too many Excels and large volumes of data. Productivity of the team was very low. So these were the problems which we faced. And then we decided, okay, why don't we go for an automated tool, or is there any solution available where we could automate our entire financial system? So this was a thought process in 2012. And so these were the 4 options which we looked at. That is, since we have an IT department within an IS development center, so we thought, why don't we develop our own in-house tool? So 4 options: developing in-house tools. Second was IBM Cognos. Third was Anaplan. And fourth was Jedox. So it would be interesting to say how we chose Jedox, or how we came to know about Jedox. So first, we had a discussion with the IS development team where we gave our requirements. But you see, since it was the first time where we thought of going for a new tool, our requirements kept changing. Okay, why don't we add this? Why don't we add that? So those were the different things. So we had like a war room session with the IS team. Okay, we gave the first set of requirements. Could you please develop this for that? So during that time, our CFO was just searching in the web for different solutions, and he came across Jedox. So that is how we came to know about Jedox, and they gave us a trial option. So we had a look at the different features. So that is how we came to know about Jedox. So we kept that as one option for us to implement in our company along with the other ones. And IBM Cognos, Renault France was already using IBM Cognos. So we contacted them also to use a tool. But what we saw was it was very expensive. The cost they were charging in India was twice as much as what they were charging in Renault Europe. And also it looked quite complicated for us, for non-analytical users, to do it for the first time. And then third option was Anaplan. But it was mostly cloud-based solution. And in terms of IS security, there was issue in putting sensitive data into a cloud outside the company, so we did not go for that. So we zeroed down to Jedox. So things which we found were attractive was the trial option of 1 month which Jedox gives. So basically, we tried the software and started using Jedox Premium to try out the features and to see whether we could proceed it with Jedox or not. It was user-friendly and it was easy for us to implement without the help of an IT technical team. For us, the only support which we needed was in terms of server space in the virtual machine. So that was only technical help which we required from IT. Other than that, using the manuals which Jedox provided, we were able to build the necessary database rules and develop the system. The price was attractive for us with Jedox offer. It retained all the advantages of Excel, and so there was high acceptance among the cost controlling and the finance team. And it had good data security because all the data were internal and it was not saved outside the company. So in terms of security clearance, it was easy for us. So after implementations, and after about a year, this is how our current structure looks. So as you can see, we take the data from SAP, and it is integrated using ETL into Jedox. And that is only one work which the analyst does. And all the business users have a standard report. They extract the data, and they send it to the division. So the entire 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks of work was simplified within half a day of work. Once the books was closed, this is done, and when we have the report. So now all the cost control team have a longer time to do the variance analysis, actually do cost control work, and do value addition to the business. And all the other earlier problems which we have in reporting lag, all those are not there now. And the productivity of the team is high, and they're able to come up with new ideas or cost-saving ideas which they could do for the business departments.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Because that's the one thing that I'm always mainly interested in, is that, let's say, when companies, let's say, are no longer, let's say, spending time working for the data, and now they can work with the data.
Yes.
What's that extra productivity that you can see now in
So in terms of building the various simulations on how they could control cost, they are able to do that now and provide and be a good business partner to the various business divisions. And actually, the team size has reduced from 10 to 5 now. So people who have left, we did not replace them, or they've been allocated to the other business divisions. So that is one, and there's less of manual interventions. So no need to worry about the data integrity and questioning from the management. So these are the key things. Yeah. So I've summarized the final results. It's good value addition to business and management through early reporting. That is, immediately after the book closure, within a day or two, we could present all the reports to them. As I said, the team has more time to do the analysis and cost control work rather than looking for the data and searching for what has gone wrong or to prepare for the reports. There's a standardized methodology of reporting now. As I said, high productivity in the department. And we have extended these features for budget simulations now. Earlier, it was all manual. So since Jedox has a feature of doing what-if analysis and other ad hoc analysis, we've used that for our budget simulations to do top-down reporting and compare it with the bottom-ups which the departments would give. It's moved from being person-centric to system-centric now. And it's a single source of data for us. And all the reports come with a single click of a button. So we don't need to go through complex Excel files or the different folders. It's all saved in the database and you just need to extract it. So just on an ending note, the CFO is happy, MD is happy. So they are happy with the results and we are happy with the solutions of Jedox. Yeah. Any questions? Thanks. Yes. So in terms of, we have like the various KPIs which we use. For example, it's all workload driven. Engineering services company is workload driven. So in terms of the number of workforce which we will require for a company, so we use predictive analysis for that based on past data and what could be the appropriate workforce required for the future based on the workload which we will receive from the company. So that is one type of analysis which we do. No, we define it. Yes.
While doing your implementation, did you add some standard templates or you created everything from scratch as per your
We defined a template, and since Jedox has this Excel add-in, we integrated that into the Excel tool. But they give us standard templates which we also can use, but we wanted a specific format of reporting.
One more question. Now that you've seen success of the financial review, have you extended it beyond plans?
No, we have not extended it inside thing. But I forgot to say, so the purchase organization of Renault is wanting to use Jedox and they are evaluating it. And sales and volume planning, Nissan Middle East have started using it. So for us, we've just stuck with finance for now. We have not looked at other areas.
And then one for me again, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm always interested to hear, let's say, about Jedox usage from our clients.
Yeah.
So when it turns to, let's say, to users' acceptance of actually the tool, so what was it like when you were bringing, let's say, that you're allowing to work the way that they normally were able to work, with eliminating, let's say, all of the stuff?
So actually, in terms of acceptance from employees, it was quite difficult in the initial stage because it's like since you're going to automate and the workload is going to reduce, there is some hesitance because of job security. That is always there. But it took about 1 year for us to completely roll out the systems. But now, since they're able to do more value addition work, they're happy with what they're doing. And the team size is small now. As I said, others are not there now.
Are you connecting directly to the SAP environment?
No, we are not using SAP connector. We extract it and then upload it. Yes. Yes. It's good. Sorry, I couldn't get you. No. We have restrictions from corporate on SAP usage. So we just have the rights to download the data, no, not to write back. So we don't use SAP connector for that reason. So for us, it's saved in the virtual machine of our company server. So whenever there's a system down, we would have the issue. When we're not able to access our company's server, then we will have that issue. But that's like it's during the maintenance time. And we've not faced. Sorry, that it is not linked to that. It's since everything is within our company, so there's no problem of their maintenance affecting us. Yeah.
In case you want to extend Jedox to certain other areas, do they have experts inside the system, or again you would be falling back on
For Valforma, we started using only like a couple of months back, but before that we had developed it ourselves. So that capability is enough for you to develop. Internally designed.
How many people would be active?
Around 15 users. So we've had like the finance team is very small. So the team within the team we would use it. So we have like 44 user licenses. So of which mostly around 15 use at any point of time. So that will not be, that is not through Jedox. We send as an Excel report, Excel or PowerPoint. Actually, we've not upgraded to Jedox 6 yet. We're still at 5 because of our internal problems. That is because of IT upgrade. Otherwise, we get information and then we can upgrade this the latest version. Yes, you can do. You mean in terms of from Jedox, what they do? Yes. You would get regular notifications of. Using Jedox. So that is where we used Valforma's help recently. So one thing we have not explored the Jedox web option fully. So we are still using Jedox Jedox Excel add-in. So the only feature there is you'll have to go, because I was involved in the design of it, I know which dimension or cube I have to choose. But for the CFO, he is like, no, I just want to click this, click that, click the various things, I want the result. So that was his main thing. So that is where we have integrated Excel, macros and Jedox, wherein there's a predefined option. He selects whatever he wants and then the result would come. So, but in terms of Jedox, it's like, you have the main thing, you expand it or you can contract it. So that is a feature. So if there is anything like, we'll be able to choose multi-select options in like a checkbox thing, it would be very useful. So that is what from a business user perspective they would expect. So which Jedox web has, and we have not utilized it. It was about 3 to 4 months. We just they provide support only in terms of licensing. Others we developed it internally. Yeah.
they were doing it for themselves. Unlike an IT services company, it took some time, but ideally, that's a good amount of time.
So it was mostly like reading the manuals and then that is how we were doing it. Since I had little knowledge of programming, I was able to, for the ETLs I was using it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. It was great. It's great to hear that a company that used to try and work for their data all the time and now is able to get their data to work for them. It's fantastic. So I guess the next stage now in the presentation today is that let's take a look. Let's see what it is from the Jedox for the C level. And of course, as we said earlier, generally it is how does it cost, what does it cost, and what are the risks involved. So with Jedox, we have many different options. So Renner are using the on-premise, but we also have Jedox Cloud, which is available, which is on a licensed subscription basis. We also have private cloud, again on subscription basis, and we also have client server and standalone as well. So really, we can fit to whatever it is that companies are looking for. Be it, let's say they want to have cloud, or they want to have private cloud, or they want to have, let's say, on-premise or so on. Yeah, absolutely. It works in hybrid as well. That's what I call half pregnant. So it's that, when someone wants going to be, let's say, like, they want to be on the cloud but not 100%, we can support that as well. And then, in terms of, let's say, the Jedox project, just as you heard from Reno, is that we start off, let's say, with basic user training. Then we do, let's say, a POC. So here, Valforma is very happy to do proof of concepts for you. Bring your own data workshops where you can see what your data will actually can look like in Jedox and how Jedox can be an advantage for you. And then throughout the project coaching from Jedox and the partner. So as you heard, it's all about self-service development. That on the Renault project, they're only working with you for 3 months. Then you had the in-house skills inside to be able to build what it is that you want, which of course means you're able to have users are able to build more functionality themselves, have new models, and of course push that on then to new departments. So how can you start with Jedox today? So you can you can go to the jedox.com and download the evaluation version, which allows you to use it for 30 days. Also, Jedox Cloud is available as well. So you just log on, go on to jedox.com/cloud or whatever. I can't remember the exact URL. It's on the homepage, and you can be up and running with it in, let's say, two minutes. And then we also have a lot of Jedox Academy training, be it, let's say, online or on site. The next one is going to be at the end of June, start of July, but Valforma will inform you on that. And as I said, we do bring your own data workshops. So Valforma here are very happy to do, let's say, some POCs with you with your own data.